Be a friend of mine. Swallows, suffering with smile. I drew a different reality with unconditional loyalty. Ego heart, they can be picked 'cause I'm
Oh yeah, I knew that threw you off. You thought John wasn't listening to metal at the beginning of the stream, and haha, psych your mind. I was doing it anyway. It was just a delayed reaction on the part of the singer. That's all. Anyway, folks, welcome back to another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. So give me just a second. I will start the recording, and we will kick this bad boy off the right way. So let's do this. Oh, let me get the right button cued.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, we're back with another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report, and again this week, two weeks in a row, because, folks, we've got a lot of things to talk about tonight. With how the legislative session ended this week, it was a roller coaster. It was it was an emotional roller coaster, and it was kind of a train wreck and a dumpster fire, and that amongst other things. But we've got Patrick back with us to discuss what went down, and I guess kind of a battle plan or a strategy for next session, and the way things are going to have to be done. So, Patrick, good evening to you, sir.
Hey there, John. Thank you so much for having me back. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, man. 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, it's one of those things where after, which we'll get into, the events of the last couple days, what we witnessed ourselves sitting there just watching it go down, it was like, we have to talk about this. There is no, oh, well, wait a month. This is too hot. This is too, it's just too emotional to let go right now. I know we're both upset about the goings on, but it's like we have got to talk about this now before they can circle their wagons and make their excuses. We've got to discuss this now and air our grievances and discuss how we go forward.
Sure. Not only that, but I think it's important that your frustrations and your angers, are tempered with objectivity, understanding what the real problems were, how things actually played out. But I'm sorry to tell you, folks, SB 100 died, and it actually didn't even die today. It died yesterday. And the person to blame, squarely to blame, is Representative Dean Plocher, the Speaker of the House. It was very, very clear yesterday that he had no intention of ever letting that out. So, we can go through, and we will go through, minutia, the details, the minuscule details, the big picture details, and not to mention things that happened along the way that were allowed to happen that shouldn't have happened, and things that shouldn't have happened that were actually very obvious, and they were happening in real time on the floor for everyone to see. We can go through all of that tonight, but I'll give you the brass tacks. Dean Plocher killed SB 100. Dean Plocher singularly, decided that silver and gold could not go through. Now we can speculate as to why he wouldn't let it go through. That is a matter of speculation, but the fact is he killed it, and he alone. He did have people help him kill it, but we're no strangers to that. We saw Dean Plocher kill HB 2009 last year, John, and that was Susie Pollock's bill. basically the parents' choice on vaccinations. And he used people to help him kill that bill as well. So we're no stranger to him having allies in, basically, and I don't want to call it personal, but I mean, I don't know what it is at this point. Like I said, we'll speculate. We got some pretty good speculation, but at any rate, folks, it's gone for this year. Despite all of our efforts, we couldn't overcome, basically what Dean Plocker wanted. But there's a bright spot to that, and that's because Senator Eigel and Senator Moon were fighting back, and in their own way. And that was in the Senate by not letting House bills through. So someone was finally starting to fight back, because we don't see that fight coming from the House, for what Dean Plocker, decides to do. And yes, you'll have people in the House say, well, that's because the Senate's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the Senate will say, well, that's because the House is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. My dad can beat up your dad. And that kind of stuff happens, unfortunately, in the Missouri legislature. We have a very, very dysfunctional legislature because we do have sociopaths in the positions of power in our government, and that would be Speaker of the House. And I don't think it's necessary to go beyond that right now. Speaker of the House is the most powerful position. It shouldn't be, but it's been allowed to become that. And the Speaker of the House can actually shut down anything, or get something to go through too. So that's liberty legislation suffers when that happens, and then basically leadership priorities go through, and those usually do not benefit the people; they benefit corporations.
Yeah, what we saw and what we heard, especially yesterday. I mean, we were both there for 12 hours yesterday. And, some of it was in the House gallery, some of it was talking to reps. And, I mean, you were running around like a chicken with your head cut off. Gary and I kind of hung together, and Casey and yourself and Jim Pellis were, working things, and we were going around talking to people. This is going to sound strange, folks, but it was very heartbreaking. It was also fun. It was also very educational. So there was a lot of mixtures of feelings and just stirred together in this pot yesterday, because I did enjoy seeing how the peeing contest goes down. I did enjoy, going and talking to reps and hearing from them and getting, what they were being told or what they assumed was going to happen. And then we were all trying to come together and discuss, you guys were just, I'm not a strategist, so, Patrick and Jim were discussing strategy a lot. And it was, as heartbreaking as it was still very, very educational. And I still, even with the outcome, I still enjoyed my time there, working this a little bit, just because it gives me ideas on what it continues to build on the education that I've got hanging out with Patrick and his group, because there's so many good people in an organization. They all have kind of ideas, and you got people like Casey and Goatfoot Grant and Gary Ride and some of these others that are at the Capitol a lot, and they kind of know, they've got certain people that they really like. And they can really go in their office and strike up a good conversation and maybe get a little intel from the LAs or the actual rep or senator or whatever. So you get this input from all these different areas. And then, we kind of meet back up, discuss how we're going to do this, who's going to go see who, whatever. And it's it's something I need to do. I need to learn this. Now, am I ever going to be a leader? No, because I have old man brain and we won't get anywhere if I'm leading. But it's still nice to know, because in the future it may help me out if I want to give input, I'll have a better idea of how to do things. And that's what was so great. But again, listening to listening to some of these because in the comment section it's already blown up. I have to. We don't have to go into it right now. We can
No,
come back to
let's
this
save
later.
that. Let's save that for a little bit.
Just the comments from the Democrats were so enlightening, folks. I mean, so very enlightening. But yeah, it was quite the interesting ordeal yesterday, and I am not sorry that I was up there. Even though the outcome wasn't what we wanted, I am not sorry that I went up there and spent 12 hours up in Jeff City. I am not sorry that I did it at all, because afterwards, when we were sitting in Mike Moon's office and hearing the banter between Moon and Ron Calzone alone was gold. When they're, jabbing each other a little bit, joking around, but then the insight that they have that you get to be a part of and hear this thought process was also, I enjoyed the absolute hell out of that. So all in all, folks, yes, sometimes you don't always win all the battles, you don't win all the fights, but there's never really, you never should be sorry that you join any grassroots organization. It could be Missouri Freedom Initiative, it could be the Missouri Freedom Foundation, or you create your own. You go to the Capitol, you spend a day talking to reps and senators and working for something that will benefit all Missourians. You should never be sorry, no matter the outcome, that you went up and spent the day at the Capitol.
Yeah, for instance, guys, when you see, what Plocker does when he shuts something down like this, it's meant to discourage you. And to keep you from wanting to go forward, keep you from wanting to do it again. And especially those who put a lot of effort into it. For making one phone call and sending one email and then seeing silver and gold fail. I sure hope that you're not feeling horrible, because like I said, a lot of folks put in a huge effort to try and get silver and gold across the finish line. I wanted to comment on something real quick that Wilderness Gal put in, and this is about her Atchison, her representative, said, basically it's the Senate's fault. And then, of course, you talk to a senator, they say it's the House's fault. They're not doing their job, therefore we're not going to do our job. Let me tell you what I've seen in 4 years of doing this, is that people who were representatives, who ran for and then did get Senate seats, what they'll do is they're in the House, and they're saying for years and years and years, it's the Senate's fault. It's the Senate's fault. And then they actually get elected to the Senate, and then they say, starting that very first year, it's the House's fault. It's the House's fault. I've seen that multiple times. Not a joke. So this is literally it's left versus right, House versus Senate, black versus white, pro-gun versus anti-gun, pro-choice versus pro-life. This is what it is, gang. I mean, it's the same thing. It's divisions, basically, to point a finger at somebody and to explain why you're not doing your job. That's what it is. So, a lot of people will say, well, there's a lot of blame to throw around with silver and gold. I don't think so. Plocker wasn't going to let it across the finish line. It's that simple. Now, like I said, we can speculate as to why he wouldn't let it across the finish line. And I think we could speculate on that and come up with something real close to the truth. But the fact of the matter is, it was Plocker who stopped silver and gold. Dean Plocker. And we've seen him stop lots of stuff. I mean, should it surprise us? No, because, Plocker the blocker has a lot of power. And it was given to him by the House. And if you talk to the House members now, which I have done, and said you should never have voted for H.R. 11, look what the end result is, and they'll say, well, I was misled. I was misled. I didn't truly understand, what the implications were of H.R. 11 until it was too late. Everyone's always got an excuse. So the fact of the matter is we have one more year with Plocker as Speaker of the House, and the people in the House will not come together and change the rules or have another election for Speaker. So, but I think it's very important that people of the state of Missouri understand SB 100, silver and gold, is not going to materialize this year. And it's squarely because of Dean Plocker. Everyone should know that. Dean Plocker's running for higher office. So everyone needs to know that. We need to spread the word. We need to keep spreading the word for the next 18 months because he is running for lieutenant governor. Now, before we get into the fun part of this, and that's the Democrats on the House floor. Actually, you know what? It wasn't even fun at the time. It was just embarrassing. It was downright embarrassing is what it was. Before we get into all that, I'm going to speculate as to why Dean Plocker didn't want SB 100. It was a non-offensive bill. It wasn't going to cost the state any money. The grassroots wanted it. The vast majority of legislators wanted it. So why the problem? And my speculation is because they literally cannot have Bill Eigel or Senator Eigel have a win because he happens to be running for governor. And Dean Plocker really, really dislikes Senator Eigel. And Senator Eigel is a kind of a grassroots guy. And Plocker is corporate fascist kind of, rhino guy. So they're diametrically opposed, actually. You'll find as we get into the discussion of what happened on the floor yesterday regarding SB 100, where the rhinos and the Democrats joined hands and sang Kumbaya because the grassroots and the rhinos dislike Senator Bill Eigel. It's that simple. So, but at any rate, that's my speculation for now. But the fact is it was killed, and it was killed very effectively on the floor. We saw what they were doing. Within about 15 minutes of it being on the floor, we knew exactly what was going on. So, and there's a poll right now on the chat. Is Dean Plocker the most evil person at the Capitol? So cast your votes on that. So go ahead and let us know who you think is the most evil person at the Capitol. Okay. And without further ado, I'll let John start us off. And forgive me, guys, I'm just really tired. But I'll have John start us off. We need to talk about what happened on the floor. We were treated to about an hour and 20 minutes of quote unquote discussion and debate for perfection. That's the purpose of it, for perfection on the floor. This was the most unprofessional perfection I think I have ever seen since SEPA. And we were treated to quite a show from the Democrats. The Democrats let us know why SB 100 could not happen. And John, I'll let you start us out.
All right, folks. So let me paint you a picture here because I don't think the words are quite enough. So let's say you're sitting with friends and you're working towards something, and there are people, because we're up in the gallery, so we're sitting above the House floor and we're looking down at all the state reps and watching the process, and then the bill that you've been working hard for to get through, to get it over the Senate so they can vote on it and get it to the governor. And the representative that's carrying the bill introduces it for the third read, perfection, all this stuff. And he walks you through what the bill's, concept is, all this stuff. And then you have two or three Democrats who want to raise their hand and they want to ask questions. So in today's world, would it shock you in the least bit to hear shaky voice, nasal, let's see, how would we do this? Shaky voice.
Sarah Unsicker.
Yeah, I'll call her shaky voice. And then we had Nernburn, who will call her nasally Nadine. And then we'll just have, the third one will be the House idiot. And imagine these three people talking and the concept that they were worried about, folks. I'm not going to do the voices because I'm not that good at impersonations, but imagine if you were to take a guess at what the biggest concerns for this bill would be, just think aloud to yourself. You just think to yourself, what would they be? Would it be Nazi gold? Would it be Confederate gold? Would you think that if we brought back silver and gold, that only the rich could afford it, and you would try to tie that to try to bring back slavery in the country? Do you think those would be legitimate concerns that the Democrat Party would bring up? Well, that's what they brought up. They brought up
Don't forget the MAGA
the
coins.
MAGA coins with Trump's face on it. So you had MAGA coins, you had Confederate coins, and you had Nazi coins, Nazi gold. This was the concerns of the Democrat Party. And here's the thing, folks. I get it. Gold and silver are beautiful things. And so they want to talk about because gold is higher priced than silver. So a lot of people might buy silver. They strictly focused on gold, but Nazi, Confederate, and MAGA coins. Okay? Nothing about silver. Like, people with lower income could buy silver and enrich themselves with a money that is tangible and has intrinsic value. But we're not going to focus on that because we're worried that somebody's going to bring a Nazi gold coin to the state and pay their taxes with it. I'm sorry, but if anybody has historical valued gold, why on God's green earth would you take it to your government and pay your taxes with it? That's dumb in the first place. But it is very interesting, and it's probably good there wasn't a microphone above our heads, because when they would bring it up, we would start chuckling. But at some point, you're just saying to yourself, kind of out loud, sit down and shut up, because the only thing you're doing.
Let's talk about zombie.
Oh
apocalypse
yeah, I forgot about
silver.
zombie apocalypse with silver. I forgot all about that. But yeah, if they would have heard us, if somebody would have taped our conversation as they were talking, it would have been comedy gold. Gary and I were having meltdowns. Patrick's just sitting there with his eyes rolling up at his head. He's chuckling because in the beginning they were hurting their own cause. It just makes them, they sound dumb, they look dumb, and it's like you're just helping our cause by saying the things you're saying, because you're not bringing up legitimate concerns unless you live in fairy tale land, in the land of make believe, and you don't have anything that's really, I don't know, useful to society to bring up. You're just literally vomiting out stupid. But then, of course, we had other events after that. I just wanted to bring up for now that if again, folks, I know I've told the story before, and I was telling Patrick and Ron and the rest of them last night, that when I donated to the Missouri Libertarian Party in 2016, and Greg Tlapic called me within 10, 15 minutes after my donation, and he and I talked on the phone after work for 20 minutes. And halfway into the conversation, he asked me about my concerns, what I thought about government's role in certain things and everything like that. And he said, well, have you ever thought about running for state rep? And I said, I'm not really intelligent enough for that. And he said, have you ever been up there and heard some of those people talk? Yesterday was the prime example. I now know why for sure that he said that to me, because I've been up there and heard some of them talk a little bit, but not to the extent that they did. Not saying what they said yesterday in defiance of a bill that benefits rich and poor and middle class alike. The stupid that just rolled off their tongues. Greg Tlapic's words rang in my head. Half the time those people were talking, I'm like, good Lord, he's spot on. But it was infuriating. It was hilarious. It was irritating. All at the same time. It's just, you ran through a gambit of emotions because you're watching minutes tick away as they're wasting time. But then you're hearing these hilarious yet stupid things come out of their mouth. And it's been a while since I've had that confusion of emotions in that short of a time frame. But leave it to Democrats and some rhinos to make you feel that way. They can literally run you through a gambit of emotions within an hour, and you're going to feel like you have multiple personalities listening to these idiots. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Well, you're ever so right. The Nazi gold, that really shocked me. because they're very, very concerned about Nazi gold. But then when they talked about Confederate gold, because not only do we have fascist gold, apparently, touched by fascists, now we have gold that's been touched by racists because we have Confederate gold. Then we have MAGA gold, people who believe in America first have touched those coins. And then we had zombie apocalypse silver. And so, I mean, they really pretty much hit all the major concerns of, the heart, touching the pulse of America. You just can't have, silver and gold, in this way. You just can't. And I'm just so proud to be in a state where the Democrats really do know what's going on and what's important to people and what they're concerned about. Because, gosh darn it, if we didn't, we might just have the Constitution or something stupid like that. So I just want to say thank you to Peter Meredith, who gave our group a shout out on the floor, talking about the very small but vocal group of people in the state of Missouri that wanted this. And of course, that refers to lots of groups. Missouri First, our organization, Missouri Freedom Foundation, Informed Health Choice of Missouri, other organizations that were all wanting silver and gold. And it was very important for Peter to mention how small the amount of people were that wanted silver and gold. The thing is that, Peter, you're fine to say that and everything. But I think that it would have been real nice if Plocker had told you about the thousands and thousands of phone calls that went into his office in support of SB 100, trying to get him to move on it. That got missed. Patterson certainly didn't get up and talk about the 350 calls that he had on Wednesday. On Wednesday alone. 350 calls that came into his office. He forgot to mention that. I doubt 350 calls come in a year for anything that you're doing, Peter Meredith, except for the one time that we carried one of your bills this year, and that was to get rid of sales tax on food. So, but at any rate, governor's special session or veto session, whatever you want to call it, is in September. And usually there's something going on that we can get involved in. But if we do go up there as a group, this is in the middle of September when this happens, always. When that happens, I think we should all, give a visit to Peter Meredith. Should stop by his office and say, here we are. Basically, you had a message for us on the floor. We're here now. Please tell it to our faces. And tell us again about Nazi gold, about Confederate gold, and about Trump gold. Tell us again why we can't have that in the state of Missouri. We're listening. So, Peter Meredith, I don't know what to say, man. Everyone in the Capitol that I talk to says that you're smart. But what they're really, really good at actually ascertaining is that you literally know how to frame an argument. But the fact is, it's not an intelligent argument. Now I know why you're not an attorney and you're a representative. So I don't know what else to say to him. Unsicker, basically is going to be what unsicker is, which is unsicker. These guys, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, do these people really believe what they said, or were they just killing time? Now, here's another thing that happened during that back and forth between these Democrats that were on the floor. The amendments were piling up on SB 100. This is how we knew Plocker was going to kill SB 100, and he never intended to let it go. For those of you who don't know, HB 1165 was a piece of legislation that was put forth by a young man by the name of Justin Hicks. It's about 90% certain that Plocker gave it to him to give to the General Assembly. because he checked certain diversity boxes. That document brings in the digital dollar into the state of Missouri, and that document was on the docket for amending SB 100. So in other words, they were going to try and amend SB 100 with the document that brought the digital dollar into the state of Missouri. That's how we knew Plocker did this. And that was his way of rubbing all of our faces in it. That's what Plocker did to everyone who supported SB 100, because he knew the grassroots shut down 1165. Now, guys, this is a fact. It is much easier to kill a bill than it is to get one through. It's a fact. It's an absolute fact. It's easier to do for a lot of different reasons, too. You really don't need a lot of strategy for killing a bill. You need a lot of strategy sometimes to get one through. And we supported Senator Eigel's SB 100 from day one. From the day it was pre-filed, and we saw that, we knew we had our year bill, the main bill we would have for the year. 1165, as soon as that was found by, I believe that was Informed Health Choice of Missouri, that'd be Jennifer Barker, we knew we had to kill it. And a lot of the same grassroots organizations that supported SB 100 got on board and killed 1165, and we were able to kill it within a month. But getting SB 100 through, Plocker was the deciding factor. Plocker decided to kill it. And that's because, partly, because he didn't get his 1165 through. If Plocker wants to bring the digital dollar to Missouri, why would Plocker want gold and silver in Missouri? You'll have to think about that too. But I do know that that Plocker and Eigel, Plocker doesn't like Eigel. So once again, I'm just speculating openly. But these are things for us to consider as well. This happened during the really stupid, time-wasting event we'll call, the perfection process with the Democrats. That's another thing too. Did Patterson call on Republicans? Yeah, he called on one or two. But he gave almost all of that 1 hour and 20 minutes to Democrats, where they wanted to talk about Nazi gold, zombie apocalypse silver, Trump gold, and Confederate gold. And they also wanted to talk about how easy it is to evade taxes with gold and silver. They wanted to talk about how easy it is to fix the price of gold and silver so you can pay your taxes in gold and silver when it's worth less. He gave some of the most ridiculous arguments I have ever seen before in my entire life. He clearly doesn't know anything about gold and silver, but he sure as hell is going to talk about it. Gary Ride says, to say Democrats were full-blown retards on SB 100 is an insult to full-blown retards. I have to agree. That's why I'm interested in talking to Peter Meredith and find out if he is truly that stupid, or if he was just playing a role, if he was, playing, representative on TV, because that's what they do. They're on TV in there, and they do antics and they do silly stuff to waste time sometimes. And I was just curious because my group really just thinks he's a full-blown retard now. So if that's the impression he was trying to give, success. Yeah, that's right.
Golf clap for you, sir. You blew the retard right out of the park. You took the retard, you carried the ball to the end zone. That's what you did. Good job.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Here's my question, Patrick. What is more disturbing? The behavior, of that man on the floor saying the things he said, or him going back to his district and people actually patting him on the back for acting that dumb? What is more creepy to you? That he does it, or that there are people in his district who are going to think that he did a great job talking about Nazi gold and Confederate gold and all those other things?
I honestly don't think anyone's hitting, slapping him on the back saying he did a great job in his district. I think they're probably kind of scratching their heads, literally saying, why did you say that? And then at that point, he'll say, it's all, it's a Republican bill. We can't have a Republican bill like that go through. Oh, okay, I get it now. All right, good job.
Yeah. It's just it there. So yeah, when he has to deflect, when he has to play the oh, it's the other side of the political aisle and I can't agree with him type of thing, you just sit there. Not only do you wonder about the representative, but it doesn't speak highly of the constituents that vote for him if their mentality, they're okay with that fact because that was a Republican bill, so you can say all the weird and wonky things you want and act completely idiotic, and we're gonna give you the old attaboy. And so it doesn't say much for his constituents that vote him in every 2 years because if,
it doesn't.
Geez Louise. But
Yep.
with Unzicker, Nurnberg, some of the others, I mean, again, Cherie Reich was sitting on the House floor and she texted me and said, "Hey, gold and silver's on the floor," and I said, "Yeah." And then I said, "How do you keep your cool listening to these people talk?" And she said, "It's really hard sometimes."
No, that's another good point I forgot about. Forgive me, guys. I'm just really tired. But there was at least 15 Republicans that were wanting to speak to this bill. They just never got the time. Patterson never called on them. He was calling on, the Democrats right and left, but he wasn't calling on Republicans. He called on 1 or 2 Republicans, but called on 5 or 6 Democrats. And every Democrat would take their entire 15-minute allotment. At least 3 of them did. And he didn't PQ. PQ means previous question. That means shut down debate. Let's vote. And all the bills in this last week got maybe 15 minutes of banter on the floor before a PQ was called and it went to a vote. Patterson didn't do that for this bill. So that was another cue into us that, in fact, during that time, Patterson picked up the phone quite a few times, and so did Plocker. So they're on opposite ends of the house, and they communicate via wired telephone. And so they were talking multiple times during this whole thing. Keep it going, let it keep going.
Yeah.
No PQ.
And so for folks, I mean, our concern, of course, is Patterson will become Speaker of the House. That's the way it's going to line up. He's going to vie for Speaker of the House when Plocker's done. Let's not forget, because just, prior to this debacle on the floor, when SB 49, the SAFE Act, came through, guess who voted against it? Patterson voted no for SB 49. So is Patterson even close to the conservative he claims to be? Or is he...
Well, he's a plastic surgeon.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So and maybe he's for the medical community making money transgendering the kids.
But that answers the question. Now it's a rhetorical question. Is Patterson a real conservative? Of course he's not.
No.
He's a rhino like Plocker. So to me, I don't know how we do this, because according to my rep, Sassman, when the vote starts for a House Majority Leader, and so there are lobbyists actively walking amongst them, trying to sway the vote. So the question is, do we try to put some, because I think it would be a wasted cause myself, maybe. Question is, when we know, because that vote will come up at like December of, it'll come up right after, I think, session starts. They vote on the Speaker of the House way before all the other. They'll do it like before the next term even shows up. That's what they did with Plocker.
Before elections, even. Before the actual general elections, they'll elect their own speaker.
So the question is, folks, do we try to make a push to make sure that Patterson does not get speaker? But again, I don't know if it's going to make any difference. From what I've seen of a lot of Republicans, not all of them, but a lot of Republicans on the House side, I don't have high hopes that we can sway them to choose a different Speaker of the House and a good majority floor leader. I don't know if we could ever. I don't know if we can expect that, because we still have people who will vote in a rhino because there's an R behind their name, and we recognize his name. He's been there before. He's got experience, and it's just a default vote for these idiots.
Well, it's generally who brings in the most money for the party.
True.
And that would be rhinos, corporatist, politicians, rhinos.
So it's and until honestly, in my opinion, until the representatives decide to band together and say we're tired of, one. Well, I shouldn't say wannabe tyrants. Instead of voting for tyrants to be floor leader and Speaker of the House, let's actually get maybe an actual conservative or a liberty-minded person in these positions, not who draws the most money for the party, who has the most lobbyists, whatever. But until the reps decide to stand together and fight this, I mean, you just got, what are you supposed to do? Cross your fingers and pray for a miracle? These folks on the floor have got to band together at some point. They have to stop being afraid of the speaker. They have to. The fear has to go away. They have to have enough that builds a quorum, builds some kind of caucus, and says, "Listen, this is clearly not working. We have got to have a different type of leadership." And until we get a different type of leadership, every year, every session is going to be a you-know-what show, trying to get good legislation through that helps all Missourians, not just a select group. This is going to be a major fight every year. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I don't want to be doom and gloom. But what I've seen the last few years or couple years that I've been involved, this can't continue. Or they're just going to, it's progressively going to get worse and worse. And they're just going to make our jobs a million times harder.
You got a good point. And that's another thing to remember, gang. There's nothing, it'd be very, very difficult to change things right now with what they voted in, which is H.R. 11 or House Resolution 11 back in January of this year. They really did screw themselves over. They gave a lot away to Plocker. What I mean a lot away, they gave away a lot of their power. And they had no right to do so. Not only did they not have the right, they actually didn't have the moral authority to do so. When you elect someone to be a state, by the way, I want to give a positive message at the end of this, because there is some good that came out of this year, and we're going to talk about that too. So this isn't all gloom and doom, and you can't win in politics, so don't even try. That isn't what the message is here,
right? Because
actually we did a lot of great stuff this year. So, and also there was a very positive result, and that is solidified at 6:00 tonight, which is only 40 pieces of legislation actually happened, and most of that was appropriations. Most of that was budget. Very few pieces of legislation actually got through, and we got some good ones through, and we shut down everything else. 40 pieces of legislation, gang. That actually matches 2020. When they shut the government down 6 weeks early because COVID. We only got 40 pieces of legislation done that year. Guess what? We did the same thing this year. And that's because of what the Senate was doing to actually stand up to Dean Plocker. And this by the Senate, I'm talking about Bill Eigel and Mike Moon. This was not leadership in the Senate. They had nothing to do with it. So please keep that in mind. That is very, very important, because when you have very little garbage legislation getting through in your state in a year, that's a win. So yes, we didn't get, the SB 100, the gold and silver bill, but, basically maybe we can convince the governor that we should consider that a priority during the governor's special session, also known as the veto session. Maybe we should have that as a priority for that time. Maybe we'll get the governor to call for that. Stranger things have happened. So we'll talk about that later. But that's important for everyone to remember. We made a lot of friends this year. A lot of friends. Our feelings hurt that Peter Meredith insulted us. No. Our feelings hurt, that Plocker, was rubbing our nose in crap at the end of the session to let us know he has the power. No. We've seen Plocker do this before. Are we discouraged? Are we not going to go up to Jefferson City anymore because Dean Plocker has flexed his muscle and told us, I rule the roost up here, gang. Even the governor kisses my ass. Get it? Are we discouraged?
Nope.
Nope, not at all. So there's a lot of things that we can do in the meantime, and we'll look into, basically things we can do to discourage bad politician behavior. It's not a good thing that happened at the end of the legislative season, that nothing else got done, but a good thing came of it, which is no bad stuff got done. But I am firmly convinced Plocker was never going to let SB 100 through. Why do I say that? Because he had Justin
Hicks
put up 1165 for an amendment of SB 100. That literally was a message to all the grassroots out there that shut down 1165.
That's
a
I'm sorry.
It's mafia style message.
Yeah, I have to say this. To add what you were talking about when you asked, are our feelings hurt and all this. I think sometimes, because Patrick, you can attest to this, because I have not been able to attend the few knock and shocks that you've done. The size of the group is getting bigger every time you go. So I think they're underestimating grassroots. I think they're just thinking we're some irrelevant group of people that shows up and walks the halls and talks to reps. But if this behavior continues, it can actually cause groups like this to grow exponentially.
That's correct.
Because, damn it, we want our freedom, and you're ticking us off. So now there's going to be more of us showing up, and you won't be able to move around in this office. There'll be so many of us standing in here, talking to you, trying to persuade you, inform you on bills that we're working on. But when you show up with that many people and those groups get larger, the concern for their job does grow. They start thinking, oh, my God, am I going to get voted out? Because these are an awful lot of people stomping around here and rattling cages and doing good works. Is my job on the line? So as they push, and this is another part of politics, really. When you get a side that's pushing, and this isn't really a political party that's pushing, it's just a group of people who don't care about liberty. They have their own personal agendas. But when you have a group like that pushing against a group of people who are trying to do good things for everybody, the other side's going to push back harder. And I think they think after a while we'll just go home, lick our wounds, and stay there, and that's just not going to happen. I haven't met everybody because, again, I didn't get to go to a few, and I know that group's grown. But when we're together, it doesn't matter what the outlook is. For the most part, this is an upbeat group of people, and we're always formulating plans and talking about what we're going to do, change the strategy, and people are smiling and they're excited to keep moving. They're not. You don't see people like dragging their feet down the aisle like, oh God. No, it's like, all right, let's go.
Yep.
And we're walking quickly. We're moving to the next objective or the next, the next rep, next center. And we're going. And we could do that for 6-7 hours. We'll take a lunch break and go right back into it and do it for another 3 or 4 hours. I've seen that the few times that I've been up there.
Yep.
So they are emboldening us, however I say it, because I can't talk right now. But we feel emboldened when these people pull their antics, when they display this type of character that they've displayed, especially this last week. I mean, we were upset, but it's just next session, it's just going to be a bigger push. I would say to some of those people, maybe, just maybe, you better be a little more careful next time because this could affect your political career. And, if enough people find out, hey, we tried to do this person or these people decided they didn't want that for whatever reason, we could affect their, them getting elected again. So it's an interesting dynamic that we have going on here. And again, I feel emboldened. I do not feel dissuaded. I do not feel like, oh, woe's me, now we're just screwed. No, I am ready for the next session to begin. And, talking to people like Maisie Boyd, Holly Jones, some of these newer reps, I have a lot of hope because when you go to their office and you ask them a question, even if it's about, because some reps you could ask them about the speaker, and they're just kind of Some of these newer ones, they're not really like, oh, I don't want to say anything because it might get back to him. They're just like, no, he sucks. They know which reps are problems, and they will tell you this rep's going to be a problem for you. This rep's going to be a problem for you. And so I do have high hopes. It's just we need a lot more types, the Maisie Boyds, the Holly Joneses, the Mike Moons, the Bill Eigels. We need more of that, so election time will be very critical again in 2024.
I agree. The one thing I ask people to remember, though, those freshman representatives really have no power.
Right.
So it's important for people to know that. There are friends, though. We're developing great relationships with many of those freshmen. And when they're sophomores, once they go through one more election cycle, they will have power. And we're developing a lot of friends with those new folks. And they're seeing how badly they got screwed by Plocker with H.R. 11. So hopefully they'll have power, and they'll be able to actually elect, another speaker. And then when they go into the next year and they set up the new rules for the new speaker after Plocker is gone, they'll be reverting back to something much, much less tyrannical, because they will have seen the tyranny of H.R. 11 and giving the speaker so much power that they really couldn't do anything. Their hands were tied. And go talk to any freshman representative in the Missouri General Assembly. They'll tell you the same thing. I don't have any power. I can vote. But really, that's it. That's about all I can do. That's the way Plocker likes it. Plocker feels they need about 2 years to get good and corrupt. So they start swaying over to the Rhino side. I think that's probably what he's thinking.
Well, and just real quick, didn't we hear last night that the thought was when the incoming freshmen came in, they did like a pre-vote on H.R. 11 to kind of say, to kind of influence them and sway them right off the bat. That's what we heard last night. That while they're doing their orientation, H.R. 11 was put to a vote to those freshmen. That should not happen. That should not happen.
No, it shouldn't.
So there was influence and coercion beginning during orientation.
And psychology.
Yeah, and psychology.
And let me say this. I want to say this because I know the hour is coming up here real quick. And I want to echo what John said at the very beginning of this. After, we were done for the day, and this is yesterday up at the Capitol, and we knew that Silver and Gold was pretty much done. We kind of went up to Mike Moon's office. Ron Calzone was up there. Casey Rich with us. Jim Pellis was there. Of course, John was there. I was there. And along with Mike Moon, he had his chief of staff and his legislative assistant. And we had about a 2-hour conversation that was mind-blowing. I mean, it was a meeting of the minds, discussing ideas, working out problems, basically in a group critical thinking format. It was really a wonderful experience. I love that when we do that up at the Capitol, because we don't get that too often. It's rare that Ron Calzone will stay that late if there's no actual work to be done. But Ron was getting some guy time in with us. He was enjoying the conversation too. And he was a huge participant in the conversation as well. So guys, when we go up to Jefferson City, it's not all work. There's a little bit of fun up there too. And, being able to, just kind of camp, in a senator's room, especially a friendly like Mike Moon. He's my senator, by the way. He's a really good man, if you guys don't know Mike Moon. And then, of course, you guys know about Ron Calzone. And then the rest of us from the Freedom Initiative that were still up there, stayed up there and had that conversation. And a lot of that conversation is stuff we probably won't talk about publicly. But one thing was very clear. We went through a critical thinking process to, kind of work backwards on the sequence of events, to figure out, where everything went wrong. And it all pointed back to Plocker. Every bit of it. There just wasn't any mistaking this. So I want people to understand that actually came out of that meeting too. Even people who didn't have a dog in the fight. I mean, Senator Moon had no dog in the fight in the House like the rest of us did. He's doing his own thing in the Senate. He had no idea what was going on, but even he participated in that as well. I wouldn't say that he said it was definitely Plocker, but he certainly didn't argue against it, once all the evidence was coming out. So I want you guys to remember, Plocker single-handedly decided for everyone in Missouri, we can't have gold and silver. He single-handedly decided that. Yes, people helped him, but it was his idea. How do we know this? Hicks's amendment for SB 100 to put the digital dollar and hang it right on SB 100 to make sure they would have to go to conference and it would time out. That's exactly how we know it's Plocker, by the way. Can't get away from that, gang. You can't get away from that.
Yeah, it was sad. All right, folks. For those of you in the KEYK audience, again, thanks so much for joining me this week. To let you know, there will not be a show next week. Senator Eigel will be here in Owensville to speak. With that being said, please feel free. We'd love to see you join in on Odyssey at 7:30. Look up the Missouri Freedom Initiative's Odyssey channel and join us for the great conversations that we have on legislation and other topics here in Missouri. And you can find their link in the description of my YouTube channel. So please, please, please join us on Saturday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Odyssey. Also on Sunday nights, don't forget to check out MOLibertyRadio.us with Sam and Trish Britton off the cuff. We will probably more than likely be discussing this again on Sunday night. So there might be some different information that you don't hear. Feel free to join us. It's great having you join me each week. And we'll see you all in a couple weeks right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. All right, moving on. I guess because I had never spent that much time in one day at the Capitol. I just find myself reflecting an awful lot today, Patrick, on the events of yesterday. And really just how much it affected me. And not that I'm not overly angry. I'm not overly bitter. But there are times that I feel a burnout just doing this podcast and stuff. And then, when I can make it to the Capitol with you guys, I love that I can make it. And it has strengthened my resolve some. I have to say, it's kind of lit a fire under my buns again. What transpired, what I saw, that it's like, okay, I'm already, now, again, I'm not a strategist, but I'm sitting there thinking, what are we going to do next session? I'm already thinking about it. I'm already thinking. Now, I'm not spending all my time all day, but I just, as the day went on, reflecting on yesterday's events. And it's like, okay, we have to steel ourselves for next year. We have to be ready, be stalwart, and really go in and, be ready to hit a home run again. But yeah, I feel I'm already ready. I'm ready for the fight again. I really am. It's weird because we have several months. We got 7 months.
Thank God.
Yeah, we need a break.
Yeah,
but
we need batteries
But
recharged.
I am ready to do it. And Maya's asking, did I wear my lucky shirt again? No, I dressed nicely, and when I showed up, Gary and Patrick and KC and Jim were wearing, like normal. Well, they had their gold. Casey, Gary, and Patrick had their silver shirts on, and Jim had like a flannel shirt on, and I'm in a bright red long sleeve shirt and my red and black tie, and I showed up and everybody's in T-shirts, and I'm like, geez Louise, I overdressed for this event. But and Patrick's like, you'll just stand out. I'm like, I don't want to stand out today. I'm just here for support, you know. I don't want to stand out today. But it was.
Well, you see the way I dress, you know, basically through, you know, the year. I'd do a shirt and the silver or gold vest and a tie, you know, dressing more, you know, in a costume way. But that's really warm. And we're hitting the warmer months. So I just went right to, you know, if I'm doing a T-shirt, I'm doing silver and gold. You know, that's, and then, basically if there's no T-shirt for any cause, it goes right back to the Second Amendment shirts that we have.
Yeah, I don't, I hated dressing up. If somebody, you need to dress up, like, But I find myself enjoying it a little more now because now yesterday was like, again, we have one mission, and it's silver and gold, and the silver and gold shirts were highly appropriate for that event. We mean business, but it doesn't. I mean, I enjoy dressing up and going to the Capitol. I enjoy putting on a shirt and tie and walking around a little dressed up because. Now yesterday, I don't think it would have mattered how I dressed. My mindset would have been on SB 100. But sometimes it does help me focus. To dress a little nicer changes my mindset.
Yeah, I get it. Yep, I get it. I know exactly what you mean. That's real, by the way, gang. I mean, it's, when you're doing, it's just saying for me personally, most of the time when I'm doing radio interviews, for the Missouri Freedom Initiative, I actually take a shower and I dress nicely, even though it's a radio interview. There's no video. Because it puts you in a certain, mindset, helps you to maintain an air of professionalism. And I can't really explain why, but honest to God, it works. At least it does for me. Now I know it works for John too. Going up to the Capitol, during the cold months, it's a shirt and a tie. I do that, even though, we have T-shirts for our organization. But if it's cold, I'll do a shirt and a tie.
Yeah, this is not to say that you don't get taken seriously if you're dressed casual. But I do feel that sometimes, if you got a group of guys and gals that are dressed up a little nicer, it's just a human thing. You take the people you're talking to take notice, because it's like, oh, they are about business. But the thing is, with our group, there's a lot of people that they have this personality that's it doesn't put the other party on the defensive, because we're all laid back. We're just having a conversation. Yeah. So the dress doesn't affect it as much, because our group we're pretty laid back, and we just kind of state our cause. We do it in a civil manner. But I think sometimes, depending on the subject, what you're doing, a nicer dress up applies, or it might change the tone a little bit, because it's like, well, this guy, these people got dressed up, show up to the Capitol, they mean business. But that does not mean I'm putting down anybody who cares to, who decides to dress casually, because I don't blame you. You want to be comfortable while you're doing all that walking as well. So I see both sides. It just helps me. Even though, if I'm standing next to Gary, I'm making childish comments all the time and we're chuckling. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. When you're around Gary, you're always joking. Yeah. Gary's great for that. Actually, no matter how serious I get or how focused I get, Gary can always make me smile. But you can do that too, John.
That's my defense mechanism. If we're in a stressful situation, depending on how stressful it is, sometimes I will joke, because that's my defense mechanism to wind me down. Now, if that helps somebody else out too, that's great. But it's literally to keep me from just screaming at someone and saying something that I'll regret within the next 30 seconds afterwards. But it's my defense mechanism. Yeah. But again, It was again. So for some of you who don't know, the computer systems at Hitachi have been down all week. 2 departments have been able to go in the last couple of days. So I've been off, and I have spent some time at the Capitol, and it was kind of a blessing because with me being able to go up on Monday the rest of the day, and then Thursday. Did I go up Wednesday too? No, I only went up Thursday.
Were you up Monday?
Yeah,
You were up
Monday, half
then.
a day, and then on Thursday.
Monday and
Yeah.
Thursday.
And
Yep.
I don't know if that's divine intervention or not, but it was.
Those were the days to be up there.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I was happy to be able to go up there. And I know some people are like, you spent 12 hours at the Capitol. Are you out of your mind? The amount of things that I learned on Thursday, very, very beneficial. I just can't say that enough, how beneficial it was for me to be there and to witness. Even though some part of me, I felt like my IQ was circling the drain when certain people were talking, it was still beneficial and educational for me to be there. So, yeah.
Yep.
So I guess, Patrick, let's. What do you? I know next session, our focus again will be silver and gold. I'm assuming, but what are some of the other things maybe we start thinking about doing next session? What are some of the things or some of the topics maybe that we want to cover next session?
Yeah, there's an interesting concept that was brought forth by Luke. Gosh darn it, guys, forgive me. I know I keep saying I'm tired. I really am tired. Mike Moon's L.A.
Yeah,
Luke.
Yep.
I can't remember his last name right now. Luke and I are, we get along pretty good, but Mike's my senator, so I spend time in there. Luke hit me up with something that ended up becoming a very interesting mental exercise on a different idea for getting rid of sales tax on food. So I want to explore that a little bit more with Luke before I come forward with it to the group. I need to know some logistics that Luke and I are going to have to figure out, but it's a completely different way of doing it. Rather than doing it on the state level, basically, guys, don't take this as red and gold. This is not written in stone, and this isn't the entire idea. But basically, having a piece of legislation that would allow counties and cities to start removing sales tax from food and by themselves, start reducing it by themselves, so that the pressure inside a certain area, like in Springfield, can actually help, start bringing down sales tax on food. And I'm not talking about sales tax on everything. I'm just talking about on food. And it was an interesting idea. We need to explore some of the facets of that, Luke and I together. It was a concept we were working on together. And so that's something I'd like to explore, because that's a big one for us. We have to do this in Missouri. We have to get rid of sales tax on food. But whether or not the group, votes to make that a priority is another thing. Silver and gold is something I would still like to pursue, but I would like the group to agree with that. If the group doesn't agree, we don't have a knock and shock. That's why we have a democracy within our group. That's why, you guys, if you've never seen it before, you might even think that we hate each other sometimes if you watch our New Year's Eve show on our live stream. Because on that show is basically where we're going through legislation and we're deciding what we're going to carry for the year. And everyone brings forth their favorite pieces of legislation. It's along certain guidelines. And then basically they make a pitch to the group. And then we start voting, on whether or not that's going to be one of the pieces that we, carry for the year. And so at any rate, I'd like to hear the group say again they want to go for gold and silver. And then we'll look into, food tax. This is a different kind of bill, so this would have to be constructed and most likely carried by Mike Moon. And then there's a few other things, like, for instance, there's an idea that was brought forth by my wife for a piece of legislation that would basically make the debt at a school district completely transparent and at their district website. And currently, they don't do that. And that would make it very easy for people to be able to see how much debt they have before they actually start asking for more bonds. And they don't show that data. They don't even admit that data. So that's another one to look into. But there are other ideas too. Like, for instance, there's Protect the Guard Act. That's one of them. How about a bill to make central bank digital currency illegal in the state of Missouri? A bill all by itself to do that, to ban it from the state of Missouri. There's lots of good ideas out there, So what are we going to do next year? I'm not 100% sure, but I know we're going to be bigger. Our group is going to be bigger. It's because we're growing every year. I know our knock and shocks are going to get bigger. They're getting bigger every year. So I know our presence is definitely being felt in Jefferson City, and Peter Meredith played on that, during the silver and gold, floor time. He talked about how a very small but vocal group of people were pushing gold and silver. Well, the fact of the matter is, like I said, it was much, much larger than just our little, 2,000 group. It was a lot more than that. So we're just going to get bigger. And I think that we need to be smart about what we do in the future. I think bills that we have to be less complex, very easy to understand. Gold and silver, the only reason it was complex was removal of capital gains tax, by the way. That's the only thing that made it complicated. Otherwise it was a very simple bill. And so we should stay with that, I think. That's my opinion. But once again, it's all based on what the group wants to do, and we do have to vote. And, and I will go by the group's decision because, like I said, if I try to be a dictator over the group, we don't have a knock and shock anymore. And that's the power of the group, period. End of story. So that's our claim to fame. That's how we're noticed. That's how we're getting things done up in Jefferson City. So when it comes to deciding what bills we do, it's going to be a vote.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been turning a couple ideas over in my head. One is to start, some kind of sunshine thing on Missouri taxes where it would require the legislature to revisit them. If they are not needed, out they would go. The other one would be, and this, I know both of these would be extremely difficult. These are just ideas of mine. That one, and then another bill that would reduce the amount of DESE employees by a certain percentage each year for so many years. And I know the pushback's going to be, oh my God, what are we going to do? And to my way of thinking is, okay, now people may not agree with me on this one. This is a very new thing I'm thinking about. This is just something I kind of popped in my head on the way home last night after talking to Ron. Is you take that money that goes to pay the DESE employees and you move that money to the teachers' salaries. Because what is the complaint of all these government, all these politicians? The teachers don't make enough. Okay, but you have DESE with over 1,700 employees sucking up education budget with their salaries.
That's right.
Then take a portion of that and move it to teacher salaries. Now you're increasing their pay, and you're not really affecting anything. That's just an idea. Now, we could work a lot on that to work out the thing. That's just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah, I just want to say, because you brought that up, it's an interesting point. My wife just pointed out to me today how difficult it can be to get a hold of DESE sometimes. 1,700 employees, a massive budget, and lots of redundancy within DESE, yet no one seems to be able to pick up the phone and answer questions. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah.
And I want to answer a question real quick. Voodoo says, do you think we can get a different sponsor other than Bill Eigel for gold and silver? We could certainly look into that, Voodoo. I'm not opposed to that. So that, once again, that's totally up in the air, so we can definitely have a group discussion on that.
Yeah. In fact, today, as I was trying to kill all the rest of my brain cells that I have left by listening to, watching the video from the House floor, and then I would switch over to the audio from the Senate floor. So they were talking about there's some little department or something, this group of people over the Office of Accounting, and they used to have this merit-based system, and so if something was going on with an employee, they would meet to make a judgment. They got rid of the merit-based system, and these people, there's still this group that are appointed by the governor, and the guy's like, we don't need them anymore because we don't have the merit system. They literally don't meet. It's hard for them to all get together at one time. Let's just get rid of it. And then Unziker's like, well, I really wish I had more information on what these people did. And he's like, they're not doing anything. It's literally, he's like, we're shrinking the size a little bit. And I'm thinking, well, you're shrinking it in the wrong place. But hey, I'll take whatever I can get. And, Unziker with her shaky voice there was like, oh, I really wish that I understood more. It's like, lady, he's telling you, they're literally doing nothing. What else? What part of nothing don't you understand? So that kind of like, oh, okay, well, we do that. And then, like you just said, we find the redundancies and in DESE, and we start eliminating those. And that money could go to teacher salaries if you wanted to, because we have people on both sides. And I will even agree a little bit that school teachers don't make enough. Here's the thing. It's not the teachers' salaries that I find ridiculous so much. It's the fact that these teachers have to go buy supplies for their own room. And nobody finds that to be problematic. What do? They go, oh, we should give them a tax cut on what they buy. Like, isn't the fact that they have to buy supplies for their own classroom bad enough? And your answer is, instead of figuring out a way to make this go away, to resolve the situation, we'll just give them a tax cut on the things they buy for their classroom, and they move on. Mm-hmm. That, again, why this teacher has taken up a career to teach our kids, no matter how awful the curriculum is, that's their job. And they're spending their own salary on supplies. And it's like, oh, we'll just give them a tax cut. That just seems idiotic to me. Like, I think there's work to be done here. If the teacher has to buy supplies for the classroom, the school budgets are climbing up. The schools are getting more money because valuations have gone up on property, and the teachers still have to buy supplies for their room? That seems odd to me. Where's that money going? Again, this is not an easy topic to tackle. I get that. Democrats and rhinos will fight you tooth and nail, but I think if we could show them that, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to take some of that money and move it to teachers' salaries. I don't, of course, Democrats and some rhinos are going to be upset because you're shrinking the size of government. But the arguments that they're going to have are going to be, they can't bring up Nazi gold, and they can't bring up Confederate gold, and all that stuff, or zombie apocalypse. Or zombie apocalypses. So the racism arguments and all that stuff will go away, because if you're increasing teacher salaries, then now, of course, the teacher salaries would only be going to those districts without teachers unions, because those teachers unions fleece the taxpayers like nobody's business, so they're on their own.
Hang on. I'm sorry. We're going to back up here for a second here, because I just had a thought.
Sure.
Yeah, it's totally unrelated to what you're talking about right now, but you mentioned the zombie apocalypse goal. Is that racism towards dead people?
It is.
Okay, that's what it is. Yet another divide, the live against the undead. Gosh darn it, guys. We've come full circle with all these divisions now. If we can literally start hating the dead, for some reason, and not wanting their silver, for some reason, or silver that they had in their possession at one point in time, that's an awful lot of gold and silver. That's most of it, I think.
And we got to look at it this way, Patrick, too. They don't want to take their silver, but they'll take their votes.
Yep, they will take their votes. Well, the Democrats will take their votes.
But they don't want their silver.
Yep.
Only their votes.
I'm thinking about it real quick. I just want to say hello to Gary Ride. And Gary, if you wouldn't mind, tomorrow night on our live stream, if you wouldn't mind calling my phone and joining the conversation, I want everyone who'd been there this week up in Jefferson City in the conversation, to share their experiences and what they remember, so we can kind of have an online documentary of what happened this past week, up in Jefferson City. The experiences in Patterson's office. We should get into, basically the promises that were made, and the
Yeah.
experiences going into Patterson and Plocker's office.
Yeah.
And then let's have a really, really good memory and recall of all of that in one video, even if it's 2 hours long.
Hell yeah, that's perfect. I mean, because now I got there right as you guys were leaving Patterson's office on Monday. I joined up with you right as that was done, and you were like, okay, this guy's saying he's all for it. He was all excited. And then we saw the actual results. And I have to say, when we went to, I think it was Holly Jones's office, and we was like, oh, Patterson said he's on board, and she's like, no, he's not. She was, I mean, as soon as it left either mine or Gary's lips, she's like, no, absolutely not. He is not. She's like, he's lying to you. I'm telling you, he's lying to you. And we're like, oh, okay. And then he showed his true nature on the floor on Thursday while the bill was being heard and read and discussed and debated.
Well, I'll keep in mind, okay, Patterson deserves some of the blame, too, for killing SB 100, but he was taking orders from Plocker. We know that because Plocker kept calling him over and over again over on the floor leader side from the speaker side. I mean, he was giving him marching orders. I mean, you could see it. Patterson held a piece of paper, like this, so you couldn't actually see what he was saying while he was on the phone. Yeah, this is Jaws. This isn't paper, but, you guys know what I mean.
Well, there's sharks in the house, so, yeah, I mean, it's kind of appropriate.
We were swimming with the frickin' sharks that day. But I'll tell you what, gang, I can't say this enough. It was really, really painful sitting in the gallery and listening to those Democrats. As much as someone else would find it amusing, like, for instance, if you could pull up the video from the archives and sit back and watch it, in retrospect, I'm sure that it would be funny or fun or what have you. But while we were there, it was downright, honest to God, it was painful. And it was embarrassing. And I was thinking to myself while this is going on, I think they believe this because if you guys remember during the House hearing, that gal was talking about, well, the money has to be minted in the United States in order for it to be money, or gold. I'm sorry, gold and silver have to be minted in the United States for it to be money. This conversation was going on in the House hearing. This was a Democrat. And, these guys are just so ignorant. We should be able to laugh and smile at it, but in real time, it's just embarrassing and uncomfortable. Being around people that dumb, having access to a microphone and not being shut down by the floor leader. It was, but we saw that during SEPA, by the way. We saw that during SEPA, particularly in the Senate. Wasn't as bad in the House. Well, Peter Meredith, I forgot, was in the House. He said some painful things, but I remember a little bit more in the Senate, because the Senate got to speak as long as they wanted to. That wasn't true in the House.
Yeah, it was. I mean, again, it was stupid and humorous at the same time. To hear him and Nurnburn nasally Nadine and Shaky Voice all talk about gold, Nazi gold, and all that stuff.
Yep. There was Nazi gold, Confederate gold, and MAGA gold or Trump gold, gold coins with Trump's image on it, and then zombie apocalypse silver that weighed heavily on the minds of Democrats during that debate, heavily. So much so that they took an hour or so talking about that.
Let's just be honest. Again, I'm not a big fan of Trump at all, okay? I'm not. But that man still lives rent-free in their heads. And what's that say for Democrats? He lives rent-free in their heads every day. They are going to bring up his name ad nauseum for years to come because of, Jan 6 and all that other crap. But it's just like, I want to walk up to him and go, is this all you think about? Is Donald Trump, honestly, this is what you're scared of. That one dude scares the bejesus out of you, and to where you can't even make an intelligent argument against a certain piece of legislation. That's how fixated you are. That's how much of a cultist you are for the Democrats. That you will just, it's just. Yeah, like Warrior Class 3. Remember Representative Hank Johnson, a Democrat from Georgia, worried, "My fear is that the whole island will become so overly populated that it will tip over and capsize."
I remember that, Warrior Class, and welcome to the conversation, sir. I remember that. That was fun.
Yeah, that was, you know, when you sit and you, when you hear those things, you just go, "Oh, okay, this is real." I mean, you have to sit and literally go, "This is real life." These people actually say these things. And sometimes, yes, they're just making stuff up. Other times, I think they actually believe it. And that just makes it even creepier that these people actually think this way.
Yeah. You're so right, because these are people of authority.
Yeah.
These are politicians. You know, and, yeah, I get that. And, you know, we can smile about that. But we have to remember, not all of them are pure evil. Some of them are just pure stupid. You know, they just pure, unadulterated, unbridled stupidity lives within them. The ignorance, you know, goes on and on. Oh. And the fact that they're not willing to educate themselves, the willful ignorance, is the really sad part. I mean, everyone's born dumb. I mean, come on, man. You know, every one of us is born dumb. But how many of us are literally not willing to sit down with someone to explain how we're wrong and, you know, educate us, and without us being all arrogant and say, nope, I don't want to listen to you because your political views are different from mine. Don't want to hear about gold. Don't want to hear about silver. You're a Republican, or you're an independent, or you're a libertarian. You're a constitutionalist. Ooh, yeah, that's another bad word. Talking about that, and this happened during this year, and it was Mary Elizabeth Coleman's hearing. Gosh darn it, trying to remember the name of the senator, Democrat senator, who I used to get along with. But I did mention to him, you know, basically about the sovereign relationship between Missouri and the federal government based on federal funding per capita to the state of Missouri being the highest in the nation. And when it plays out that way, who's the sovereign in that relationship? And he says, use the word sovereign. He goes, now this conversation's over. And I'm not kidding you. He actually said, Doug Beck, Senator Doug Beck is the one who said that to me. You used the word sovereign. This conversation is over. So apparently the word sovereign was offensive to him. And I used it in the context of Missouri versus the United States. So, you know, so lots of interesting things happened this year. It has nothing to do with silver and gold. I just thought I would bring up the conversation. It had to do with sales tax on food, by the way.
But it speaks volumes, Patrick, because these people swear an oath to uphold and defend the Missouri and the U.S. Constitution, and they have no understanding of either document. And those documents are based on the states being sovereign, the people being sovereign. And the same gentleman who swears, again, an oath, or takes the oath to uphold and defend the Missouri and U.S. Constitution, clearly doesn't believe anything those documents say, because when you said sovereign, you might as well have said slavery or Donald Trump, and he just, his thinking cap, it's probably chewed up and ratty and it's got full of holes, but his thinking cap immediately got taken off. You just made him lose cool. Go ahead.
Gary Ride says, Beck has always been against any bill we stand for. Well, interestingly enough, he switches sides. Now, once again, I never said I relied on him for anything, for anything that we support or anything. But he is a man that he's a Democrat that I can sit down and have a conversation with. So I respect him for that reason. That's the only reason, actually. And actually, it's a valid reason. Very few Democrats will sit down and have a conversation with me. And that's just a fact. And actually, I'm ashamed to admit that, because clearly I can't find a way to get along with them. I know they're not going to try to find a way to get along with me. I get that. But if I want to be effective up in Jefferson City, I want to try my very best to get along with Democrats too. That's just a fact. I mean, that's what we try to do. But Beck is a guy I can actually sit down and have a conversation with. But I am mentioning in this particular conversation, when I used the word sovereign, he found it offensive. That is a fact.
That's trippy. That's just, but it goes to show you how brainwashed they are. And let's not forget, folks, sometimes we just like to think these people are evil or we say they're stupid. And some of them, because they wanted this position, will happily toe the party line because it helps ensure that they may be reelected again for this position of power. It doesn't matter what they think. This goes for a lot of Republicans too. They will happily toe the party line. Republicans will disavow themselves from certain parts of the platform that they're supposed to stand for, and that's because the highest ups in the Republican Party have also disavowed themselves from certain parts of the Republican platform, and so they act in the same way. That's when you can tell, and it's not that hard. That's how you tell that they are not there for their constituents, their people. If you get a group of them together, if they're on the floor or whatever they're meeting, and they're all saying there's these canned responses,
Mm-hmm.
that's a party platform. Yeah. It's just the way I have to. And when I was talking to Jim yesterday, while we were eating lunch, and I was talking about Jim Lemke had given me a few people to interview, and I said, there were a lot of things when I asked him about guns, and I asked him about SEPA, when I asked him about recreational marijuana, their responses all sounded canned. And he said, yeah, marijuana is one of those things that the majority of the Republican Party want to stay as far away from it as they can. So I've had family members, or I know people who have been affected by drugs. And I told him, I said, well, I understand that. I knew that. It's still disheartening to hear that's like you guys can't even come up with your own response that doesn't sound like it's been prepared for you. And again, even though we, pretty much kind of agreed on 90% of things, maybe 80%, when I hear a canned response from somebody who's running for office, even if they just will say, you know what, I'm not that educated on the subject, but I'd be happy to look into it and we can talk about it later, I'd much rather hear that than a canned response from these people, because it's like, I'm beginning to think you can't think for yourselves. You have to have somebody else tell you how to answer questions. Now, can I rely on you once you're in office to think for yourself? Or are you going to toe the party line? Are you going to kowtow to leadership and do what they want in hopes that a bill that you write later will be allowed to hit the floor and maybe go to the Senate? That's concerning to me when they can't come up with their own response.
Yep.
So.
I agree. And, the canned responses and the canned answers, I'm finding that a lot from a lot of the freshmen, particularly in the first part of the legislative season. Obviously, they went to, school when they first got there and were kind of taught, basically, that a lot of them didn't know how to be politicians. I mean, most politicians don't know how to be politicians when they first start. So you gave them a little bit of time. You do have to give them some time. My rep, Bob Titus, had kind of a rocky start, but, he's proving to be a pretty solid conservative so far. I mean, he is impressing me. Mazzy Boyd is another one that actually came out of the gates very strong.
Yeah, she did.
Yep. And a very, very impressive young lady. And I've had several conversations with her just in the last month, and we definitely have an ally in her. And she likes everything that we do. So that's very, very encouraging. And we found a lot of freshman representatives that like what we're doing. A lot of senators like what we're doing that are seasoned, been there for a long time. Same thing with reps too. But once again, I mean, we seem to be diametrically opposed, unfortunately, because we're constitutionalists. There's a lot of Democrats and rhinos that really dislike us. But are we to change what we do to make them happy? No, we ain't going to do
No.
that. So we're going to have to find a way to get them to see our point of view. So that's our challenge.
Yeah. Again, when I felt really good after going in and talking. Gary and I went to talk to Holly Jones, and there was 2 or 3 reps in her office, and I handed out business cards, and I said, if you ever want to come on the show, please feel free to contact me. And Holly said, you know what? You show up here, you keep rattling cages, and you keep doing what you're doing. She's like, I will get you interviews with people, like Dr. Eric Naputi, who I guess the CDC has billions of dollars worth of lawsuit against him for what he said during COVID. And there was one other attorney. She's like, I will get you interviews. And so even because I don't show up there to get interviews. I don't show up there for that reason. I'm there because I see these things that need to be done in Missouri. But it is a good way to build connection with these people, to build an alliance with these people. And if I get some interviews out of it because of that, that's great. That's a bonus for me. But I'm not there. My primary reason for being there is not to get interviews. Because if that's why I'm there, I'm useless. There's no use for me being up there traveling with the group if I'm just handing out cards and that's the only thing I have to say. Hey, I'd love to get an interview with you. And that's all I do. And I don't conference with you guys. I don't travel with you guys. If I'm off, there's no reason for me to be there. I can do that on my own time at some other day when the group's not there. But that's the kind of response we're getting from people because they're like, they will come on. They will talk to you about subjects. And so their constituents and the rest of us can get an honest read on them for the most part on how they feel about subjects and if they would be a good ally for us going forth through these legislative sessions when we're trying to push good bills through or fight bad bills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great.
Yep. Yeah. And once again, that's wonderful. And John, you keep doing what you do. And that's, part of the power of the network is, everyone has their forte in the things they do. And, basically creating these relationships with these freshmen, guys, it doesn't seem like a big deal right now, but that's because they have no power and they signed away their power, to Plocker. And that was H.R. 11. But wait until they get elected again. They will actually be quite a force. Yeah. And so, and they agree with us. They're on the same lines as we are. And they're on the same page as we are. That's very powerful, gang, and that's a big freshman class in the House of Representatives. So we won't really come into how powerful those relationships are until 2025, but we need to keep developing those relationships. Plocker is out after the end of next year. He's gone, and the tyranny that he had, but then again, there's been lots of tyrannical speakers of the House. But you see, that's the thing. You have this group of freshmen that went through that tyranny. It's like the revolution that happened in 1776. Those people went through the tyranny, so they fought it and bought time by making sure that, there were, new rules, the Constitution. In our case, new rules for the House, so that a tyrannical speaker could not, be a tyrant and actually have the power to be a tyrant. He can be a paper tiger with the rules, basically. So it really doesn't matter who the speaker is. Was David Castile a freshman? Yes, Wilderness Gal. I do believe that Castile is a freshman. So
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yep. So go Doug. So Doug, are you thinking about running for office, sir?
Yeah, I go for it, brother. Because that is the thing too. I think that if you get enough grassroots people going up there, and you're going to have some really smart folks in those groups, we see it. We see it in our group. We see it in other groups. People that know the process and are good at strategizing and things like that. When they go up and they start building relationships with other people and they decide to run, that's your best hope that some of these people may feel that pull to run for office. And if they can get elected, you're just building you're building a coalition, and you get some tenured reps or senators in, and you get these freshmen coming in, and you have a bigger grassroots in the House or the Senate. Those people are going to help the freshmen along. They're going to look out for them and say, pay attention to this guy, pay attention to this. Hey, take a better look at this bill. There's some things hidden there you might not like. But things like that, they will slowly build up, and that's just the way it's going to have to be done. Unfortunately, folks, there's going to have to be. That's how we're going to have to build a better representation in Jefferson City. It's not by voting. Grassroots are going to have to find the good candidates, promote the hell out of them, and help them get elected, because there's someone that we can build an alliance with before they even get into office, and we know we have it. But that's just it, folks. There are going to have to be more good people, good, smart, liberty-loving people that run for office, because it would be great if we could all just be in the grassroots and it wouldn't be a big deal to go up to the Capitol. It wouldn't be a huge fight to get things done. That's not the case. So we're going to have people who just say, you know what, I'm going to run. I'm going to take a chance. You might have to run twice. You get the first one in, you get your name recognition, you build a coalition with constituents, and the next time you run, you win. That's literally, and it's just like what we're doing at the Capitol. If everybody stays home, nobody goes up there, silver and gold is not a thing. It's nothing. It's gone. It doesn't even come into existence, because now Eigel or Moon might think about it, but there's a good chance they wouldn't. So the grassroots going up there, promoting these things. Now, that was Eigel's bill, but how many other bills would maybe come into being without grassroots being there? And it's the same way as representation. People have to get involved, decide they're going to run, make a good push, and kick out the old guard, bring in the new guard. The Libertarian Party sure could take some freaking pointers on that, but it's Republicans too. So that's just something that we've got to do. We're going to have to find people and really be uplifting for them, back them, and get them to run for office and do what we can to help them get elected, and then push some of this old guard out. And it would make our jobs easier. But until then, it's going to be one hell of a fight.
Yeah, it is. And it should be a fight.
Yeah.
Because we technically we the people let it get this bad.
Right.
And I know that it's terrible to point fingers at ourselves, but it happens to be the truth. If we were, as a state, paying attention to what was going on to our state politics, it never would have come to this. Never, never, never. It just wouldn't have. We wouldn't have let it. But we stopped paying attention because we were too busy watching the federal politics dog and pony show. The drama that is Washington, D.C., Days of Our Lives, C-SPAN.
Yeah.
Just sit. Yeah, and it's the truth, though. Guys, if we divert our attention away from Washington and divert all of our attention to our states, we can definitely clean up the mess. It can be done, despite the fact that, Plocker killed SB 100. People may be discouraged and say, I actually worked on that and I'm terribly discouraged, because I put time and energy and effort into it and there's no payoff at the end of it. We don't have this bill. It's not going to become a law. Folks, this is the reality of actually trying to get good constitutional legislation done. There are hurdles to overcome to get anything good done. Unfortunately, other states got silver and gold with no resistance and very quickly, but they don't have Plocker. We have Plocker. He is, unfortunately, he is, produce of a state that wasn't paying attention and wasn't involved. And so that's, yeah, I think that people, take me seriously on this. This is not something that I say, because it's a tagline from the Missouri Freedom Initiative, but freedom really comes from your state, not from your federal government. The Constitution doesn't give us rights. It discusses, what the limitations of government are. The Bill of Rights don't give us rights. They enumerate what our God-given rights are that are in the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence says we get our rights from our Creator. So really, our freedom is in our states. It always has been. It always will be. We've totally forgotten this, and we let a lot of that literally just seep right over into Washington, D.C. because we weren't paying attention. So that's what we do. We make sure that people understand that their power and their freedom is right here in their states. And if they don't use their power, they will lose their freedom. And that's where you get, products like Plocker, coming, Dean Plocker, the Speaker of the House, a tyrant, a mafia boss, actually running the entire city, Jefferson City, running the state, essentially. So we have to fight him, and we have to fight others like him. And we do have a freshman class that actually got to see a tyrant in action. I'm sure that they're being trained right now by their peers that are sophomores, juniors, and senior representatives. Look at the Senate. It's the Senate's fault. That's why we've done this. Hopefully, they see the tyranny that is their own speaker, Dean Plocker, who is pointing his finger at the Senate and at Bill Eigel saying, that's why we're doing what we're doing, is because of what they're doing. That's not the way it's supposed to work in government, folks. They work for us. They do not work for themselves, for corporations, for special interests. They work for us. And getting SB 100 done was for the people. Dean Plocker decided he is not going to do anything for the people because he doesn't like Bill Eigel. That's what you get when you don't pay attention to your own government, is people like Plocker. We have others too. Mike Sierpoy is just as bad. He's on the Senate side. Lincoln Huff. I wouldn't even say that about Caleb Rowden, who is the pro tem. And the reason I won't is because he will give in to pressure. And we know this as grassroots people, that Caleb Rowden can be reasonable if you apply enough pressure. That's not true with Dean Plocker, unfortunately.
No, he definitely has a tyrant streak in him. He has the very selfish, streak in him. He's got his own personal agenda, which is the agenda of others who pay him a lot of money and lobbyist money and all this stuff. I just want to put in real quick, folks, for those of you who want, I am thinking of starting a email list, and what I will do is I'll tell you about upcoming guests or some art. I may put in a few articles that I find
That's
on
a great idea.
Stuff here in Missouri. So if you want to join my email list, email me at mlreport@protonmail.com. It's in the chat here, live chat here in the video as well. Send me an email. Say, yeah, I'd like to be on your email list, and then I will start compiling a list. And like I said, I'll advertise some upcoming guests and some articles that I come across or interesting legislation during the session. But anything relating to freedom here in Missouri, I will put those things into an email list and start doing that.
John, that's a great idea. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll put that in my email tomorrow morning, that you're starting an email list. Guys, we have to have email lists. And the reason being is because of censorship. John, right now, John and I probably right about the same time will be starting to transmit our programs on Rumble. We're both going to be going there, but he's going to stay on YouTube at the same time. I'll stay on Odyssey at the same time. But the fact of the matter is, basically all it takes is the flip of a switch and we could disappear off of social media. That's very difficult to do with email. So the email lists for grassroots is actually really critical. So please don't think, oh, geez, another email list, another email that I'll be getting once a week. Don't think of it that way when it comes to our state grassroots organizations. Even being on Jody Grace's email list is incredibly beneficial. I would encourage all of you to get on hers at jodygrace.com. There's a lot of good intel that comes out of her email. So all of us grassroots have to band together. If we want to fix our state, we have to band together. Jody Grace did a terrific job of shepherding SB 49, by the way, which we got through this year. And, so protecting the kids. And not only that, basically she helped us out. We helped her out with 49 at the end. We were doing it, most of us were doing it as individuals. We decided to do it as a group as we lost others because it was a very, very good bill. And Mike Moon's bill, by the way. But she came in and helped with 100. Informed Health Choice of Missouri was helping out with 100. Republican central committees around the state were helping out with 100. And, we didn't, ask them to help. They loved the bill and they just came in and they were putting their voices to ours. The grassroots need to come together on the good pieces of legislation. And get on the grassroots emailing list. I mean, it doesn't hurt my feelings when you say, well, Pat, I'm on your email list. I'm going to get on Jody's too. I would say, great, please do it. Same thing with John's. Get on John's email list because once again, we're hunted people because censorship, just because of censorship, not for any other reason. I don't think anyway. No, we're hunted anyway. We're on lots of lists, I think.
I'm sure we are. Well, Pat, I know that you're mentally and physically exhausted. I'm mentally and physically exhausted, so I'll go ahead. We're going to go ahead and end the show. We've had a lot of good conversation. We've covered what we wanted to cover tonight on what's happened this last week of the legislative session. We've had some theories on why things happened, and we've got some knowledge on why things happened as well. And that's what I wanted to get out tonight while it was fresh on our minds and not, because again, next week I will not be doing a live stream. I may be doing a live stream if I have good enough reception inside that building. I will live stream from my phone. I will live stream the event on May 19th here in Owensville with Senator Eigel's visit. I know that I'm going to be speaking a little bit. I believe Sam from Off the Cuff will be speaking a little bit. And Senator Eigel will be speaking as well. So if any of you live around here, I mean, even if you're an hour away, we'd love to see you. It's at Deb's Barn here in Owensville. If you look that up, it'll show up on your GPS. But it is in between 1st and 2nd Street, right along Highway 28, the main highway going right through the middle of town. It'll be on the north side of 28. So it's in between a church and 28th and Main. There's a little building there. So that's where we'll be. That's where Duncan and some other people will be holding that event. But yes, I will try to live stream as much as I can of that. If I don't live stream, I will take plenty of video and I will post it later on YouTube after the event so everybody can kind of see how it went. And so, yeah, I'd love to see you there. Hopefully some of you all can join up and show up and meet Senator Eigel and hear what he has to say on his run for governorship. I have a lot of things to write down on just kind of being a part of the fight a little bit for his bill and some other things that I've seen going on, his leadership abilities in the Senate side. I definitely want to highlight those things so people know exactly what kind of person Senator Bill Eigel is. So I hope to see you all. The doors open at 5:30. The event starts at 6:30, and that is next Friday night. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, I will not be on next Friday. There will either be a live stream or recorded video posted later. And then I think what I'm going to try to do for the last Friday of the month is have my good friends Sam and Trish Britton back on the show. And we can talk about some of the things they're doing, some of the things they have planned, and just topics in general. We always have a great conversation. When I have Patrick on and I have Sam and Trish on, now if Patrick and I are both well rested, We could go on for 3 hours, no problem. This week's a little different. Sam and Trish is the same way. We can go on for 3 hours, but I always try to cut it at 2 hours, just because a lot of times I work on Saturday. With that being said, folks, again, make sure you check out on Saturday nights the live stream on Odyssey. Look up Missouri Freedom Initiative on Odyssey. Join us at 7:30. You can get gilded as well and look up Missouri Freedom Initiative there and join in the conversation on Saturday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Time on Odyssey. Also, don't forget Sunday night at 7 p.m. Central, MOLibertyRadio.us, Sam and Trish Britton, Off the Cuff Radio. Sure to be a good time. Lots of good information there as well. And also check out KEYK or KeyGatheringPlace.com. And I have a show. My show airs there 3 times on Tuesday, I believe. I know it's 3 times. I just don't remember the times and never can keep those straight in my head. So show all these folks some love because they've been very helpful to me in helping me spread my message. So as a return favor, I would ask that you show them some love and help spread their message as well. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks, maybe next week, right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.
Want more freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
All right, folks, again, thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you all in a couple of weeks right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. It's been a fascinating, exciting legislative session, and we definitely have things to build on for next year. So with that being said, good night, everybody, and thank you all for joining in with me every week, and your questions and comments. Always a good time to see you all joining in. So with that, take care.